Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have with us, he's the director of a movie that's in production right now, and it's called The Farmhouse Murders. I have with us Kevin Duffy. Kevin, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, brother. It's a pleasure. So, tell us a little bit about The Farmhouse Murders.
All right. So, The Farmhouse Murders takes place in this sleepy little town of South Bend, New Jersey. And it's a town that hasn't really been explored in a long time, but it's been talked about through folklore, through different stories handed down from fathers to sons, grandfathers to grandsons, about a town that nobody really goes in anymore, and about a few families in that town that people would cross the street to avoid walking past their homes. And so what happens is, 40 years previous, there was this big problem surrounding South Bend, which where we don't know if it was cursed or something just may have happened. But it's something, the more happened, the less people talked about it. So over and over, the population dwindled, the police force dwindled, and the town basically became next to nothing. And our story follows two podcasters who are researching what happened here and why does no one talk about it anymore, and what became of the few people that still live there. So they go to find out, and they have a pretty big following, so people know about it. So people are all tuned in about what's going to happen here, and then something goes horribly awry, and they're never able to air the show. Their family members hire a private detective to go to the town, and in him going back, it becomes a revelation over the past 40 years, the different things that have happened since and now, because it all pretty much comes to a head 40 years later. What happened then, since then, and now how it's going to end. But the story of South Bend is going to end in the Farmhouse Murders.
Fucking love it, man. Love it. Love it. So are you a Jersey guy?
I am Philadelphia based. I'm in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, so I'm like 15 minutes from the Philly airport. But my parents own a farm in New Jersey, which a lot of the filming is going to be done there. So they live in Jersey. I'm more like right outside Philly.
Okay.
But yeah, I do like New Jersey. I used to, Jersey Shore for vacation and all that. But yeah, always been a Delco guy.
Awesome. Now, Eagles fan?
Yeah, I like the Birds. I got my green on. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Die-hard Eagles fan, man. Die-hard Eagles fan. So, all right. So, what gave you the inspiration from the story?
I would say the movies that inspired the Farmhouse Murders. The original Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Classic.
Yeah, I always liked how there was one story and then there was another. Mm-hmm. Now it almost felt like two movies. And then I screamed at it later, where you thought Drew Barrymore was the lead character until she was gone.
Yep.
And they flipped the script pretty quickly. And I always like movies that make you come at it. So I won't say Scream, because it's a very story driven movie. It's a heart pounder. It's not too much slash and dash. It's kind of, when you get there, but you have to get there first. So it's a very story driven movie with twists and turns, and it goes in different ways you can't expect. So I would say Psycho, and there's definitely a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe. And I'd say there's a little bit of Just Before Dawn in there too. And as far as the tone, I'd say Burnt Offerings, like the Oliver Reed, Karen Black film from '76. I'd say it has like a paintbrush of Burnt Offerings on there, where it's I like a dreadful tone where the audience almost feels as in trouble as the people they're watching, where you start to look around the room while you're watching it. I like something that can really get under your skin to make you lose sleep at night.
See, I love horror movies like this. I love horror movies that have you guessing. I love small town horror movies where like shit is happening. Every small town has its story.
Yeah.
And only the people who have been there forever know the true stories. And I love a movie that untells these small town stories. And also, I don't want to say it's a slow burn, but it grasps you in, it gets you into the characters, as well as the story, and then over time it starts fucking with your head.
I got I've been very secretive with the script, but the very few people I have let read the whole script where they just adore the pacing. Because I'm a big fan of like Duel, Spielberg's Duel, and Jaws. I really like to. I like to mess with the brain a little bit. I want you to think of what it could be, and it might even be scarier than what's about to come.
I agree. I 100% agree, man. Now, one thing is also, man, you fucking lined up an amazing cast for this movie.
So yeah, Larry Hankin was the first one I cast, and I actually wrote the part for him in mind. And Larry was obviously in, what wasn't he in's like a harder list than what was he in? It was written from Escape from Alcatraz, Home Alone, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Breaking Bad, Seinfeld, Friends. I mean, I've always been a fan of him. I always felt like he should have a leading role where it's Larry Hankin in. And as I wrote my script, I was like, Lynn, wouldn't it be incredible if Larry Hankin said yes to my, because I wrote the script with my dad, and for about 6 months we just talked about cool ideas. Like, it'd be cool to make a movie on this farm. And then, so we just came up with it together. When I first went to Larry Hankin, I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna have to just do this with, either some indie greats, and there's a lot of indie actors that I love, and I work with a lot of them, and they're great. But I wanted I want some names. I want some head turners in my debut. And I said, wouldn't it be amazing if Larry actually said yes? And I reached out to him, because the worst thing that can happen is he says no, and I'm right back where I started.
Exactly.
And he said yes on the first meeting. Before the shooting schedule, before we talked salary, he said yes immediately, because the character, and I don't know if he could tell I wrote it for him. I was sure to tell him that I did in my pitch to, hey, you should be in this movie, but I think he could tell that, because even back to his, like, my favorite episode of Alf was the one where Larry's the burglar. I've just been a fan. I've been a fan of Larry since Saturday morning, reruns in the mid '90s. So it was very special for that, and everyone loves him as the cop with the donut and Home Alone. And falls on the phone, and he's basically useless in trying to help, but we want to see the burglar, so we don't want Kevin saved at that point in the movie anyway. So he did his job, and so that was huge for me. And he said yes, and then after that, I said, it's not going to be just him. I said, I have my sheriff, and he is who he is. I said, but I'm going to go big with this, because I might only get to do this once, and if I do it right, I probably won't just only get to do this once. And I really wanted it to be right. So the next big name I went after was I was always a huge fan of Stephen King's miniseries, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, from Halloween 3 and The Fog and everything else he had done. The original Halloween, he was Myers for the closet scene. And Halloween's a big influence for me too. I think every horror fan can appreciate John Carpenter's Halloween.
It's my favorite horror movie by far.
It's my number one. It always has been. And so yeah, it's Stephen King's particularly the character of Mike Hanlon. And when I was going Mike Hanlon, I was like, I love Tim Reed's performance and Marlon Taylor's performance. So I actually reached out to both of them. And I didn't hear back from Tim, and Marlon got back to me almost immediately, and was very excited about it. And the way the script was written, because the only person I wrote in definite mind, I thought I'm going to get one name, and I'm going to get one big name, and the rest I'm going to go with the rest. But when I decided I was going to try and make it like a powerhouse, the way the script was written originally is, Deputy Lewis, who Marlon Taylor is playing, is about 30 to 40 years younger than Sheriff Riley. And I thought, right when I was going back and forth with Marlon, I rewatched the original It. I still hadn't heard back from Tim Reed yet. And when I watched it, and when his schoolroom scene, when he comes in and he talks about the curse of Derry and how people disappeared and how no one talks about it, I started to I started to make connections to it, and I was like, it's almost like he was born to play this part, and he hasn't really, he was in some other TV shows, and he's had success in other areas later, but he hasn't really been in a feature film horror movie since the original It. And so we made a deal, and I got to cast Marlon Taylor from It in the Farmhouse Murders, and I'm so excited. That's a really fun part, and I think Marlon's really excited for it, and I think he's gonna kill it.
Oh,
honestly, the conversations we've had, we're shooting towards the end of July, maybe the beginning of August, those particular scenes. But I'm really looking forward to working with him. And then after I sealed that deal, that I realized there's a part in the script also to where it almost seemed to be falling together. Of a friend, and my three favorites from the original It were always Marlon Taylor, the kids, because I always preferred part one. Was Marlon Taylor, Ben Heller, and Jonathan Brandis as Mike, Stan, and Bill. And obviously Jonathan Brandis passed away like 21 years ago at this point. But big fan of him, Ladybugs. Little shout out for Jonathan Brandis.
Most definitely.
So that left me with Marlon and Ben, because I like how their characters are kind of the opposite. Because Mike was kind of the tough one who never left Derry, despite what he'd seen, and Stan was kind of the polar opposite of him, where it shook him so much that years later he couldn't even go back. And Deputy Lewis's friend in the movie, Sal, is a very supportive friend, but he doesn't have that bravery or that edge that Deputy Lewis does. But I'm not going to give too much away. But Ben Heller, also from the original It, is playing Sal in the Farmhouse Murders. And it's going to complement. They're going to complement each other well. It's going to be the first time they work together on screen since the miniseries. It's going to come out, on basically around the 25th anniversary. It'll be later because I'm going to try to go for a fall release. I think that was a summer movie. But it's going to be really cool. So 25 years after It, Marlon and Ben are going to reunite in the Farmhouse Murders.
So I do have a question. Actually, making your directorial debut in your brand new indie horror filmmaker, is it easy to? I mean, so how does that process work when you get an Eric Roberts or you get a Tommy Lee Wallace? When you contact them, is it pretty easy to contact them? I mean, are they pretty receptive?
It differs. Something you gotta have, and I'm big on it. Starts with an L. Is luck. So I've had. It's funny. I've talked to people. You'd be surprised the people I've been able to get through just by speaking to their agents and then being able to talk to some of them privately. I actually talked to Colson Baker about this movie, Machine Gun Kelly.
Yes,
but he was looking for lead roles, and the lead character in this movie, and I'm saying like the younger leads, not my like throwback casters, but my new indie leads. The way the character is written is not like a standout. Hey, look at me. He's kind of just your everyday guy. So it just wouldn't have worked with him. But he was actually really cool, and his agent was really cool. So you never know. I think it all depends. Sometimes I think it's tough. Sometimes I think the agents would just rather answer on their behalf rather than actually bring it to them. But I think you'll be surprised if it's not always about the money. I think if people like a part or they like a script, and they like to work, people love to act. They do it for a reason. It's not just for the money. If you bring them something that they get excited about, I think anything can happen. Honestly,
that's awesome.
But I've been very lucky. I think the biggest fear of indie filmmakers is rejection.
Yeah,
and you just got to eat it because it's going to happen. You got to take it on the chin and keep moving. And I never finished earlier. I wanted to. Tim Reed did eventually get back to me, and we were going to talk it over. And I actually was able to tell his people that Marlon Taylor actually got the role. and they were happy for him. So it was cool, and I didn't have Tim Reed didn't have to say no to me because Marlon said yes first.
Love it, man. Yeah, because I mean, I've always wondered that because I mean, I come across, I go to a lot of horror conventions and I run into, and most horror celebrities, from the 80s and 90s are pretty friendly. They're don't mind talking, and I've even interviewed some for my shows. But I've always wondered, like, when it comes to some, icons, do they want to work with a more experienced filmmaker, or like you're a brand new filmmaker, like, and that's pretty awesome that some are like willing to give even a new filmmaker a shot.
I know, like I said, I've been very lucky. It's been really cool. A lot of fun to piece together.
So okay, so has it hit you yet, or has it hit you like, oh my god, I'm actually making a fucking movie? Like I have these these actors who I grew up on, and they're being a part of my movie. I'm actually making a horror film.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. It's very cool. I was glad that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be able to do this in a way I like, where I always think, and I love movies with all unknowns. I got a ton of them on VHS and DVD, and I'm a fan of them. But I always think it's cool when you can have some names across the top of your poster that people are like, oh, I remember him. That's cool. He's doing something new. That's awesome. And in the end,
all right. So Kevin, this is your first film. Now, I have a lot of people who watch my show religiously, and they are first-time filmmakers, or they're contemplating making their first film. So this is going to be a two-part question. And you're in the production stage right now. Now, what is one thing that you have ran into that you were like, you know what, this works, and I am definitely going to use this on my next project? And what's one thing that has completely shocked you that you're like, oh shit, I did not see that coming?
My next one, I definitely want to cast for a longer period of time and do a longer pre-production. Basically, just because I wanted to get the ball rolling fast, because it's time to make it when it's time to go when it's hot. But what it's cool, it's also helped me be better in prepping, making sure everything's ready. Which actor scheduling is huge for me. But I was smart enough in my own sense to where that's why I kind of I'm doing it over a long period of time. I think if I were just trying to throw a shoot together, it would feel rushed. So I definitely think pace yourself is a good idea. And the way I was like, my pre-production would have been a pain in the ass had I gone for a complete shoot right away. I don't think I would have been able to do it. To organize everything, to get all the locations at once, to get all the actors there at once, I just don't think it would have been. So I think what you want to do, and is if you can do it, it depends if it's written that way. Sometimes you need everybody there at all times.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it is. But the way I was able to line this script up is how it's made it easy for me, and I'll definitely do that the same way in the future if need be. It's something I have, because what's good for me is this isn't how I make money. I have other avenues to where that comes in and goes out. So this is a passion project for me. This is the guy that wanted to be a filmmaker, did something else, had a family, did other things, but put himself in the position now where I can do something I've always wanted to do. And especially with help with the Indiegogo and everything, is I can get other people involved in it and get other people excited for it, and really do it big if it's going to be the only one I do, or go on from there. But the biggest thing is taking the risk, because nothing worth getting is risk free.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, you got to go for it. If you're Jim Cameron says, you know what I mean? If you want to be a director, start filming something. Especially now, we all need 4K phones. I made a Halloween film in a 4K. It wasn't bad, but it was fun, and I got to make a movie. It was cool. I like telling stories. If you have a good story to tell, people will listen. They'll watch it. And I'm a big fan of horror comedies right now. I'm in a lot of them. I participate. You know, like it's just cool. Like the fun movies, the Wasp Villas, the Murder Sizes. You know, not every movie has to be super serious, but I was very specific in Farmhouse Murders, where the tone is very dark, and it's just something you see it now and then, and it's similar. And like there's like the gross out ones too. Like I love Terrifier. They're fun. They're great. But Farmhouse Murders isn't really like it very much. Like when people die, it is going to be gruesome, but it's not a horror porn. It's very serious in tone, and I want to make it clear that I am a fan of when things aren't serious, and I like to have fun too. It's not the things that happen in Farmhouse Murders aren't very fun. It's going to be fun for us, but not for them.
Now, is it hard as a filmmaker right now? Hard. I mean, listen, there's an influx right now where anybody can pretty much make an indie horror film, which is amazing, which is awesome because we get a lot more content. But is it hard right now to, as a filmmaker, to not go with the what's already being done and just follow the lead? Okay, well, I see that this is working. This subgenre in horror is working, so let me go ahead and just bounce off of another slasher. Is it hard to come up with a creative idea and stick to it, even though it may not have proven success?
Yeah, I purposely wanted to make Farmhouse Murders different. I mean, when I first started talking about it and talking to different people who'd done some indie horror movies, a lot of them came at me, "Are you going to hire this person and that person?" And I'm not going to name anyone, but they're in a lot of independent horror movies, a lot of the times together. And no disrespect to them at all, I'm a fan of both of them and all of them, really. And any name that came to me, I respected. You know, it's fun to make a movie. I love horror movies. Making movies isn't easy, and a lot of work goes into it, and a lot of people care about it, and I care about everyone who cares about that. But I purposely wasn't casting certain people just because I didn't want to. Because sometimes I feel like a lot of the movies have the same 4 or 5 principal actors, or 2 or 3 principal actors, and it's where it's all Friday the 13th, and the only thing that changes is the mask.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you know, and I like those movies, but there's enough of those movies, and I don't want to make that movie. It's already out there, and the new ones that come out that are like that, I'm supporting them and I'm watching them because I love those kind of movies. Mm-hmm. So, in no way am I talking down on those movies because I'm a fan, but honestly, this could be the only movie I ever make, and I'd be cool with it. I just really want to tell this particular story with this cast. I'm very excited about it. We didn't, Eric and Eliza Roberts. Eliza's Animal House, and she's been in a ton of stuff with Eric. And when they do stuff together, I thought of them together right away. I had shot Desert Fiends and Skate to Hell with Eric in 23 and 24, and now we'll do Farmhouse Murder. So 3 movies with him in a year and a half.
Nice.
Which is a lot of fun. I got to be an actor on those movies, so that was a lot more fun than all the work that comes into producing and directing. But just show up and do my lines and say hi to people and enjoy just being on set, because that's the blast of it. You want to have fun making these movies, and I think the best movies were probably a lot of fun to make. Besides the Kubrick movies, they were probably dreadful to make, but they were really good.
Yes, I agree. Now, hypothetically, which I think it will, the Farmhouse Murder blows up, right? People fucking love it. Will you do a sequel? Or is this story a one-off story, and you're going to work on another project?
I might handle it like a John Carpenter way, to be honest, because I love seeing what somebody else could do. I would come back on. I would write the sequel because I already know where it would go. Mm-hmm. That's nice. I wrote the sequel in my head while I wrote the first one on paper.
Nice.
But I would probably step into the John Carpenter role and let them hire a director, and they can buy the rights from me. I would sell it. I would sell the Farmhouse Murders if it could mean we would get a bunch of different horror directors to maybe get their first shot doing it. Because Rick Rosenthal's debut was Halloween 2, if I'm not mistaken, and then he went on to make Bad Boys with Sean Penn, and he went Brewskis years later. I think it's cool when things can be passed on. And, John Carpenter made Halloween, and that was great. And it really was. But he made money when Rick Rosenthal made Halloween, too. And that was great. And now he gets his star this year. So that's awesome. But honestly, I would allow somebody else to carry on, and I would sell the rights to them if it could mean that the story could keep going. Because I want to venture into other things. And my next movie, which is already written, is actually a Christmas movie. A family kids Christmas movie. It's like the opposite of Farmhouse Murders. It could basically be a Hallmark movie with maybe like a little more edge. Okay. Like Jingle All the Way is, just without Schwarzenegger and Sinbad beating the shit out of each other in toy stores. Unless I could get them to do it, and with my luck, I might be ballsy enough to at least reach out.
But would you be worried by selling the rights to the Farmhouse Murders that it could fall into that hole where there's a billion sequels and they get shittier and shittier?
I'd love it because my checks would get fatter and fatter with each sequel. and I'm never a negative guy, but I know it's like, I hate remakes and why are they rebooting it? And hey, man, that original movie stays the same forever. I might get like an extra super special edition on Blu-ray. I guess they're not making Blu-rays anymore, but I get. I'm heard about that, but I'm about remakes, reboots, sequels. Keep making them because I can always keep the original, and I'll always, spend an hour and a half and eat some popcorn and drink soda. I've always been, forgiving of remakes. There's a few remakes I prefer to the original.
But Kevin, when you sit back though, if you've seen the Farmhouse Murders Part 7, and it's so bad and it's so off course of what your initial vision was. Would you be like, oh my goodness, what did they do with my movie?
I'm sure it wouldn't even take till the 7th one. I'm just glad Michael Myers never ended up in space. What, they had 13 of them? He never made it there. He stayed on the planet for 13 movies. I think Leprechaun went on his 4th one. It took Jason, 10? Did Leprechaun go to space first? Is he the guy? Did he start the trend?
Jason went to space first, and he started.
Or I guess Alien, but does that really count? Because you're there to begin with. That can't count. Jason, no, you have to start on Earth.
Yeah, Jason was the one who started with Jason X.
Because Jason X was what, 2002? Yeah, Leprechaun 4 was 96. Yeah. Leprechaun.
The Leprechaun didn't go to space. He didn't go to space until...
No, he went 4, because then 5 was in the hood with Ice-T.
Was it? Hold on a second. No, I don't think he went to space after Hood. Let me see. I'm pretty sure that I'm 100% sure that he went to the Hood before he went to space.
I don't think so.
You might be right though. Hold on.
I was a big Ice-T guy. I love Body Count as a kid. So when he was in a Leprechaun, when Ice-T was in a Leprechaun movie, I was loving it. I remember renting the VHS. I was like 8. They're like, "You're not old enough to rent this." I'd get a guy outside to go in and rent the movie for me. But Leprechaun in the Hood, I loved it.
Leprechaun in the Hood is definitely one of my favorite Leprechauns. I was on someone else's podcast a couple months ago, and we talked about the Leprechaun. The topic was Leprechaun movies, and we literally talked about Leprechaun movies for a whole hour, and which ones were our favorite and the least favorite. And part 2 is my least favorite Leprechaun movie.
Agreed. It's stale for me. You know what? Are we counting Origins though with Hornswoggle from the WWE?
Oh, that one's bad too.
If I count that one, it's the worst. But if not, then it's 2 of the Warwick Davis movies. You know what? I really like the one without him.
Yeah, that one is great too.
The new one, Leprechaun Returns. Yeah. It was like the Halloween 2018 for Leprechaun, where the Mark Holton was back in it. That was cool. That was funny.
I love that little guy. I mean, listen, are the movies the greatest horror movies ever made?
No,
but they're fun.
I'm having a blast.
They don't take themselves seriously.
I'm having a good time, man. If I want to be sad and depressed, I watch the news.
Exactly.
When I watch a movie, I want to have fun. That's why comedy horror. It's up there for me. I like Idle Hands. I always liked that wasn't like a spoof. It was like its own thing, but it was comedy horror.
Yes.
The scary movies, it was just Scream, and I know what you did last summer, but goofed on.
But that's why I hated. I disliked Leprechaun Origins because it wasn't funny. Like it didn't have that slap shit
Yeah,
feel to it. It
yeah,
was and there was no leprechaun. There was absolutely no leprechaun. How you have
yeah.
a movie and there's no leprechaun? There's like a monster like thing coming. I'm like, this is not leprechaun. I thought Hornswoggle was going to be in the leprechaun.
Yeah, that was crazy. It's
There was no
pointless.
leprechaun. Yeah,
Yeah,
that might be the worst one.
it's got to be yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least part two had the leprechaun and it had that awesome kill scene with the guy.
Right, and a good nudity scene.
Yes.
If I remember, yeah, good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I love leprechaun movies. I mean, listen, they're not the best, but all right. So listen, Kevin, as you know, this is a horror channel.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, I like doing this. I'm gonna
Sure.
ask you 3 random horror questions. This is your personal opinion. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of horror villains?
And number one's Michael Myers. He's the Godfather. I got to put Jason up there. He had that body count in the 80s. It's got to be Myers, Jason. Really, if I could, I'm going to have to digress for a second here. Mrs. Voorhees was the best killer in Friday the 13th. The entire franchise. The first movie's the best, and the fact that it was Mommy and not him. He became a Myers clone. Even the look. He ditched the sack, and then suddenly he had a white mask. Oh, it was a hockey mask instead. That mask was white, and those coveralls looked hella blue in those later movies. He became Michael Myers on steroids. And that's okay, because I had fun with part 6. I like that movie a lot, but for me, the Fridays are always the first 4. And I love Mrs. Voorhees. Her turn at the end. It'll be easier for you than it was for Jason. She had a motive. You know, I loved it. I love that twist. It's like what made the movie not a direct Halloween copy was that little twist at the end, and I loved it. But anyway, Jason's still up there because he kicks ass, and it is what it is. And Leatherface, I got to put Leatherface up there. Am I doing 4?
Yes.
And just for me personally, a lot of people go Pinhead. I'm a Doug Bradley fan. I love the first 2 movies. I love Hellraiser and Hellbound, but I don't think I can put them up there. For me, believe it or not, a lot of people scoff at it and laugh at it. I got to put Chucky up there.
A lot of people put Chucky.
I love specifically the trilogy, the first trilogy. Yeah. If Marlon Taylor had said no, I was going to go for Jeremy Silvers from Child's Play 3. To play Deputy Lewis. He was going to be the next person I asked.
Nice.
I thought he was great in that. I think Child's Play 3 gets a lot of flack. People always skip past it, and Bride is a lot of fun, but I always like 3. It's very what's the word? You're very claustrophobic at the boot camp.
It is,
and then you get the big payoff later with the beautiful ending at the carnival with Chucky's best death in the series. So I always loved the trilogy. So I got to put him there. And Brad Dourif as Chucky. Brad Dourif as anything. He's just phenomenal. Yeah, even in Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, which obviously I didn't think were as good as John Carpenter's original Halloween, but I enjoy them. They're fun horror movies for me. I'm seeing Joe Grizzly in there. I'm a big Ted Foree fan. Rob Zombie did the same thing. He just puts people because he wants to sometimes, and he makes cool decisions. I always thought he's probably one of my visionaries too. He's a very cool director. I just wish he would have had someone dial back a little bit with some of the dialogue in his movie, and I think a lot of people would have taken it more seriously.
Kevin, that's the one thing I'd say about Rob Zombie is the dialogue. But
it works in 3 from Hell, and it works from Devil's Rejects, but it doesn't work in Halloween.
No,
and it never would. That Halloween works in its simplicity.
Yeah,
Halloween works as you think it's there, and it's not. If I know everything about this guy, I'm not. The unknown is what I'm worried about. The mood and atmosphere.
But I'm shocked that you didn't put Leatherface over Freddy.
Yep. I love Robert Englund, and he's fun for me, but Freddy became more of a comedy after the second movie. I think Freddy's really dark. Like Nightmare on Elm Street is a better movie than Friday the 13th. and it's better than a lot of it's. I like it because it's not like Michael Myers. I always liked that Freddy was his own thing. And Robert Englund, of course. I love him in the Paper Brigade as the crazy old man with running with the kids to save the papers.
Yeah.
He's another one, just anything. He's brilliant as Freddy.
Nice guy, and he's my favorite character. Freddy Krueger is my favorite horror character, even though Halloween's my favorite horror movie. But so the problem I have with Leatherface is I only like the first two. I'm not a fan. I feel like okay, I did like the reboot. With the first reboot, I know there's been like 20 reboots, but I just felt like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series overall is a big miss. You know, there's 3 good movies, and that how many movies are there? 9 or 10?
Oh man, it's up there now. I usually stop counting after like 7.
Yeah, like there's only 3 that are good, and that's the first 2 and the first reboot. I mean, part 3 is horrible. Generations is horrible.
Yeah, Generations something else.
Yeah, I mean, and then you had the sci-fi one, which was called Leatherface, where you had to figure out who was Leatherface in the insane asylum, and they escaped. And then you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, which was I saw that in the theaters, was the biggest piece of shit ever.
Yeah, I didn't care for that one.
And then you had the one from Netflix. So I mean, it's a series that it's been a lot of misses.
Yeah, they definitely, and I'd even say that Friday the 13th had a lot of misses. Like they have their fans for their gore and stuff, but you know they haven't told a good story since part 4.
Part 4, 6, and the reboot are my 3. Like those.
I really like the 09 reboot of Friday the 13th.
I did too.
I always have a blast watching that movie. And you know, the douchebags, they're going to the lake house. And I love the brother looking for his sister. It was very cool. That I feel that's underrated. I feel like it was like cool to not like that movie, and I'd love to join the crowd, but sorry, I liked it. So that's one I like revisiting. Actually, it was cool. And I like the nod to the original in the beginning with having Mrs. Voorhees and the sack and the mask. So it kind of gave you the best of everything. Yeah, that's one of my favorite Friday the 13th, actually. Besides the original 4, I probably like that one.
I'm about to say it's probably one of the best reboots for the iconic horror characters.
Yeah, I'd go with that. And the most fun. I'd say Nightmare is my least favorite.
Yeah, Nightmare. But I do enjoy that Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. The first
with Jessica Biel. I like that. That was well done. You know what I always liked? You got to separate yourself. And what I loved with that Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake was in the original, Edwin Neal's the hitchhiker. Mm-hmm. So one of the villains is the hitchhiker, and then they flipped it on its head, and now a victim is the hitchhiker. So you're going to end up in this doing the same shit, but you got there in a completely opposite way. And you know, instead of dealing with Edwin Neal and him trying to kill Franklin or whatever the hell he was doing, he was acting crazy in the beginning of that movie. Mm-hmm. You actually get a blunt warning: don't go. You don't listen. She takes care of that, and then you're still going anyway. It's like they're doomed. I always thought that was cool, and it turned it on its head, because when I first saw it, I saw that in the movie theater. I was probably 12, and I loved it. And yeah, it was cool, because I don't want to see the same thing again.
I don't, and
I want to see it. I'll enjoy it, because if I want to see the same thing, I'll just go watch it. I have it still.
Yeah, and
it's already there. Switch it up.
I just feel like that series is like, I say all the time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Predator. People say, well, Predator's not horror. Yeah, it is. Texas Chainsaw and Predator, it's just constantly rebooting. Yeah. Instead of attaching yourself to the original story and going from the original story, it's reboot after reboot after reboot, and like it gets to a point where I'm telling you, I think Predator has had like 4 reboots so far.
It's great. I only really like the first 2, but I do like 2 that a lot of people rag on too. I like the one with Danny Glover. I always did.
I like the
because it's different. One. The first one's in the jungle, the second one's in the city, and now they've just been remaking the jungle thing over and over again.
Yeah,
I guess.
But I like the new one, Prey, that's on Hulu. That one was good. I thought that was.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched that one. I think the last one I watched was the Shane Black one, or Maybe
Whatever
one
bad.
before that. They all like, I don't know, they're like a letter difference in their names too, so I can't even like search for them. And I'm watching the Schwarzenegger one, and you're like, it's this one by mistake. Guess I'll watch it. It's better than whatever I wasn't gonna find.
All right, well, all right, but let's shoot over to the second question. What iconic horror villain do you feel like you relate to the most?
Ooh, who do I relate to? I don't know what horror villain's just an all around swell guy. Let me think about it.
I'm not saying you have to killing anybody. I'm saying you relate to them. You're like, okay, I see why you're doing what you're doing. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, I guess it's Preston. Probably Jigsaw from Saw. The line he gives, I am sick, doctor, and he's saying, probably that people don't appreciate what they have, but not to the point where I'd set them up in a trap where they need to run to the edge of, their head's gonna pop off if they don't learn their lesson in 30 seconds starting now. Good luck. 28 seconds. Yeah, that's brutal. I think Saw got sequeled to death.
Yes, Saw.
Honestly, and you know what? And I enjoy most of them. I think that there's probably 2 or 3 I don't care for, but honestly, to me, it's Saw, and it's the end.
Yes.
Gordon's foot's gone. He bleeds out in the hallway.
That's it.
Adam's screwed. He's there. He's done. His saw's broken. Jigsaw's leaving. He's closing that door. He's letting you rot, and the story's over forever.
That's it. That should have been a one and done.
That's it.
I like yes. And if you
there's Danny Glover again.
Yes, but if you wanted to do a prequel on that, like they did with Saw 10, I would have been okay with that. But I don't feel like that could have went on and on and on and on and on.
I actually like the later one. I actually like Spiral.
I didn't like Spiral. I saw that.
Yeah, I kind of like that one. It was all right. It's that first one is a lot to me, and that was another independent movie where they wanted to get Cary Elwes. They did. They wanted to get Danny Glover. They did. They took some chances. I loved Saw. That was another one I saw in the theater and thought it was so brilliant, and the puzzle coming together and messing with your mind, and you think it's someone, and it is. He's attacking them. It's not him. Keeps you guessing until them credits go, and then you're still thinking.
Yep.
Them credits are going. You're like, what the hell did I just watch? I can't wait to watch it 5 more times in 2 weeks. As us horror fans would do instead of like doing our studies or learning how to get way ahead and investing in property and oil and everything else we should have been doing. Now we were out watching movies.
I asked the same question a couple weeks ago, and someone said something I've never heard somebody answer before, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good one." They said Pamela Voorhees, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I could see if you are a parent." And like some counselors who are not paying attention, your fucking kid gets fucking drowned. So I can see you snapping maybe, and I get it. You know what I mean? So I mean, I thought that was an interesting one.
I just wish poor Pamela would have been more specific. Poor Kevin Bacon wasn't the lifeguard that day. God damn it!
Exactly. None of them were.
All
right, final question: what is one iconic horror movie that everybody says that they love, and you're like, it's okay?
Let's see. And so I got to think in which era. Would you say like 80s to now, or?
Let's do 80s to now.
I don't know if a lot of people like it or not. Can you give me some examples? I don't want to say it. It's like a bad word. Honestly, I'm just gonna do it, and I'm gonna be hated for it.
Okay, so majority of people say Exorcist is a movie that they love. Jaw, the original Friday the 13th, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, the Thing is one that I hear most people say. The original Scream, first Scream, is another one that most people say.
Like Scream. Yeah, there's another one. Just give me Scream, and you can keep all the sequels.
Yeah. Yep. And what's another horror movie that everybody says that they love? I'm trying to think.
So we're thinking more like classic, not like any of the new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
classic horror movies that I like a lot. I love all the Universal monster movies too, from way back in the day. All the black and white.
Yes.
Love those for sure, but yeah, I'm definitely thinking more contemporary horror. I'm trying to think of what people like that I don't like. I do like The Exorcist. It's to me that's almost too slow at this point. Oh man, it's tough. I love the original Omen. What the heck don't I love? Maybe that's a good thing to have. Is I like most movies.
I'm gonna tell you mine then.
Okay.
Mine is the first Terrifier. I don't see the I did I
That's
like
what I
part
was.
two. I like
That's
part
what I was
two.
afraid to say out loud. Mine's the same.
I don't
Terrifier.
understand. Yes, because but it's not that Terrifier is a horrible movie. It's not.
Mm.
But it's the way that people talk about Terrifier. It's like they're talking about the original Halloween. You know what I mean? They start
Yeah.
putting that in that same level, and I'm like, I don't. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah.
My favorite Art the Clown was Mike Gianelli's original performance in All Hallows Eve. I yeah, it's a different art. So the original art was Mike Gianelli, and David Howard Thornton's amazing. He's awesome. But Mike, for some reason, something was very unsettling about his performance in All Hallows Eve, where dreadful. I'd say, yeah, very, very eerie. His original role, like I knew nothing about him. He almost had less personality than he had in the later Terrifier movies. But
Wow.
but his signature things were there. He was a little heavier than David, so he wore the outfit differently too. And it's just, and a lot of it just has to do with the film itself. I love the way that was pieced together, where it was short films from Damien Leone that he had made previously. One of them being the short Terrifier. And it's one of the 3 shorts in the movie, and then there's a wraparound story with Art the Clown and a babysitter and 2 kids she's watching, and it's brilliant. I think it's underrated. A lot of people say, "Oh, Terrifier's great. All Hallows Eve stinks." It's like, no, All Hallows Eve is willing to tell the story that Terrifier just wants to get you from one gore spot to the next.
There's absolutely no fucking story in the original Terrifier.
Right, and then they gave you both in Terrifier Part 2. They gave you story and the fun gore. So they figured out their perfect formula.
Yep.
But to me, All Hallows Eve will always be my favorite Art the Clown movie. Unless Terrifier 3 is absolutely amazing, because like I said about the reboots and sequels, and we'll see.
I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's.
I don't either. If you ever watched All Hallows Eve, you gotta put that one on one night. Yeah, that's a cool one.
I think Terrifier 3 is gonna be absolutely horrible. But I hope not. Indie movies support you guys, but I don't. I mean.
Yeah, sometimes you get too big for your own good a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to.
More people have things to say, but bottom line, I'm happy for all the filmmakers to get their due, which is cool. Yes. That's cool to see.
But no, but the one controversial thing is I do not like the original Friday the 13th. I'm not a fan of it.
Okay.
Never been a fan of it. But I'm not a huge Friday the 13th fan. Like, if you ask me now, listen, if I would put Jason on my Mount Rushmore, because he is. I mean, he's one of the most iconic horror villains there is. So you got to put him up there. I mean, the guy is gnarly with his kills and everything. But I'm just not I just feel like a lot of those movies are the same. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's like one and all the same. Like Part 4, Part 6, and the reboot are like, especially Part 6. Part 6 is my fucking favorite.
Part 6 was the one that had fun, and it was great. And it had the Alice Cooper song, and it was the first time we saw Zombie Jason. And I can't remember who played him in 6. I think it was C.J. Graham. He was great. He laid the groundwork for what Kane came in, and I guess he's the granddaddy of it. And Kane's cool, so he can wear that if he wants. I always feel bad for Kane because I love his performance, but I don't like the 4 movies he's in. I'm like one of the best Jason is in the 4 worst movies, and we still love him because he's not writing the script. So that's why Farmhouse Murders stinks. They can be mad at me, and they can still love Larry and Marlon and Eric. And we brought up Halloween. You know, Sandy Johnson, the original Judith Myers, is also in the Farmhouse Murders. As
Love it.
Yeah, well, I had to get at least one John Carpenter, and her specifically. It's cool. She's the ultimate victim in Halloween. So when you meet her in Farmhouse Murder, she's something completely the opposite. Like, what if Judith Myers had lived a different life, and instead of being the victim, she was the survivor? And what story would she tell?
Love it. Now, Kevin, you still got Indiegogo up, correct? For the farm.
Indiegogo's still active. It's still good to go. We're going to keep it up throughout the shoot.
And what are some fun perks that are still available?
So for $10, you can get a special thanks in the film. So your name will be in the end credits or on IMDb, and there's still some producer level credits you can get, and you can pre-order the Blu-ray, which I know Sony's not making Blu-rays anymore, but the Farmhouse Murders producers are. So we're going to have Blu-rays of the Farmhouse Murders ready to go, which will probably be after the eventual premiere, which is set now to be October of 2025
in New Jersey.
We're looking at a few different locations, but probably Jersey or Philly or somewhere in Pennsylvania. I don't know. I was even thinking about the Mahoning Drive-In. I'm talking to different people, so we'll see. It could be something very special. It's gonna be memorable, and it's gonna be big, and I'm gonna try and get some of the big names there. And if this movie can do what I believe it can do, and if I can pick up the distribution that I believe I'm going to be able to get, because I've already worked with Larry Hankin on this film. Between you and me and all your listeners, he's actually wrapped. So Larry's role is complete. So we have our sheriff, and it's time for everybody else's story to unfold, and it's going to be a lot of fun to put together. And I can't wait to unleash it on everybody, because I've been sitting on this script for a year and a half, and I've been very secretive. Even the cast members, a lot of the cast members don't have the full script. Some of them do, just because some of them won't say yes unless they read every word. But a lot of the main cast doesn't even have the full script. They have their script, because I want them to go in, and everyone, like, besides me and my editor and DP and a few different of my inside guys and some of my script supervisors, a lot of people are going to be seeing this thing, and there's a surprise for everybody.
Well, Kevin, I cannot wait to see it. And by the way, if it is in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, let me know. I would love to come. And I'm in Baltimore, but I'm a hop and a skip away.
Yeah, man. If I want a day at the aquarium, I'll shoot to Baltimore. When Cal Ripken was playing, I'd be down for the Orioles. Yeah, we're suburbs of each other with how big this world is. We're close, especially in this business. Everybody's in LA.
Yes,
it's nice to have an East Coast guy and a Birds fan.
Exactly. I'm in Philly a lot because I go to Eagles games. Plus, my favorite food are the Philly cheesesteaks. So I do Pats and all of the amazing.
Oh yeah! Next time you're up here, you got to hit Chubby's and D'Alessandro's. They're my favorite corner.
I've been. Chubby's is amazing.
Nice, yeah. So that's all I always say. The Mount Airy corner, because the South Philly corner is Pat's and Gino's, and then the Mount Airy corner is Chubby's and D'Alessandro's.
And by the way, there's some great spots inside of the Reading terminal.
Oh my God, yeah. You know what? My problem is I always get in there, I load up on dessert, and then I get the hell. I got a sweet tooth. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna eat healthy, and then you hear the fryers go down. I'm getting fresh donuts, and that's why I avoid the city.
I love Philly. I mean, the food is fucking amazing there.
You go on a food cart, and it's better than a gourmet restaurant.
If I live in Philly, I feel like I'll have 3 chins and a set of titties. So I'm staying in Baltimore. We got our crab cakes. But I mean,
it makes it more fun to visit.
Exactly. All right, Kevin, it's been a blast having you on, man.
Yeah.
Everybody, go shoot over to the Indiegogo and go ahead and support their campaign. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Kevin Duffy. Go Birds, go Eagles. This is our year. Have a good one.
That's right. Thanks, everybody.